All right, IM3 classes. Today, we are finishing up our equations of parabolas, looking at the conic sections. Today, we're going to be taking parabolas that are in standard form and then converting them into vertex form. So let's just get into an example here. Starting off, we want to write this in vertex form. This is standard form for a parabola. It might look familiar because it is the standard form for a quadratic where it's ax squared plus bx plus c. What we are going to do, I'm going to move this a little bit, make it a little bit bigger, more in the middle. We are going to write this in vertex forms. Just a reminder of what vertex form is. It's y is equal to 1 over 4p. The P comes from the directrix and the focus. Check out the last lesson for a reminder on that. X minus h squared plus k. All right. So here it is. We need to. Excuse me. Let me back up. So P comes from the focus and the directrix. The h and k are the coordinates of the vertex. So this is why it's called vertex form. We're going to change this to look like this up here. First thing that we're going to do, I'm going to write this. I'm going to give myself a little bit of space in between I'm just going to move this 66 out here. What we're going to do is just look at this part here, and we are going to complete the square with this part here, and that's what's going to give us the h. All right, we complete the square here. Remember, completing the square, we're going to find a c value. So the c value, that's going to come out, it's half the middle term. All right, it's b divided by 2 squared. B, in this case, is negative 16 divided by 2 squared. We get negative 8 squared. Negative 8 squared is 64. So I'm going to add 64. Remember, whatever you do to one side, you have to do the other. So I got to add a 64 over here. All right, now, actually, I'm going to put in the line of separation so we can see the two sides. Here, the y plus 64, just y plus 64 is equal to, we need to factor this. So using that, the completing the square, it's going to be x, half of this. So negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8 squared. So remember, it's a shortcut that we're using. Again, if you need a refresher on that, check out the video on completing the square, but plus 66. So we're not quite done yet. So we have what our h is going to be. Doesn't look like there's going to be a 1 over 4p in front. That's fine. But we have this 64 over on the other side. So what we want to do is just go ahead, last step, move it to the other side with 66. I get y, right? So this all cancels out, is equal to x minus 8 squared plus 66 minus 64 is 2. So there we go. So it's just completing the square, and just be careful completing the square. Whatever you add to complete the square here, you got to add to the other side. And then you got to bring it back over at the end just to get the y by itself. So there's our equation. Let's look at one that's a little bit more challenging. All right. So what's going to make this more challenging is that we have this 2 in front here. We didn't do a lot of completing the square when we were solving quadratics when there was a 2 in front here, because there was other methods to do it that we didn't have to think about how to complete the square with when there's a coefficient from the x squared. But we're going to have to do it now. So first thing we're going to do, we are going to look at just this first group of numbers here. All right. I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor, the 2. So it's going to be line of separation, keep track of the two different sides of the equation. I'm going to factor out a 2. So it'll be 2. So that means you divide each of these terms, factor out 2. It's like the reverse distributing. So it's going to be x squared minus 14x. I'm going to give myself some space because this is going to be the part where I'm going to be completing the square plus 90. All right. So here, so again, what I did, it's I factored out the greatest common factor of 2 between 2 and 28. That's like a reverse distributing. So I'm pulling out a 2 of that, goes on the outside. There's the factors. Now I'm going to complete the square for this part here. So I'm going to find a c value. Again, that's the middle term. So it's going to be negative b divided by 2 squared. Negative b divided by 2 is negative 7. Squared is 49. So I'm going to add 49. Here's the tricky part. This is the extra step with what this 2 is gonna come into play. Whatever I add to one side, I need to add to the other, but I'm not adding 49 to this side. So remember, with this 2 on the outside, I am adding, in here, it's, you would distribute the 2, it's 2 times 49. All right. So because I'm with this 2, whatever I add to this other side, I got to multiply it by this factor out in front. That's just the extra step. So it's 49 times 2. So I'm going to add a 98. 49 times 2 is 98. And so that is what that's just that extra step with the 2 on the outside. So when we simplify all this, this will just be y plus 98 is equal to the 2 stays on the outside. I just factor this using the little shortcut. So it's going to be x, be a square on the outside, take this middle term and take half of it. So negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7, plus 90. And then the last step here is I need to move that 98 over to the other side. So I subtract 98. And I get y is equal to 2 times x minus 7 squared minus 8. All right, let's do another example. All right, so same issue here. We have a coefficient out in front, so we have to do a greatest common factor. I'm just going to look at the first 2 terms, the x's. So the greatest common factor between the 3 and 6 is 3. Since this leading term is negative, I'm going to factor out a negative. So I'm going to factor out negative 3. I'll be left with x squared. So 6 divided by negative 3, that's going to be a negative 2. I'm going to leave some space for a c value to complete the square, and then plus 2. Complete the square here. So c, the value I'm going to add to both sides is going to be negative 2 divided by 2 squared. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Squared is positive 1. So I'm going to add 1 here. But just remember, whatever you add to the one side, you have to add to the other to keep the equation balanced. I'm not just adding a 1, I'm adding a 1, a positive 1, times a negative 3. So positive 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. So I'm going to add a negative 3 or just a minus 3 on that side. All right. So now when I simplify all this, this is going to be y minus 3 on this side. And I get x. Nope, I need that minus 3 out front. And then I'm going to factor this using just the little shortcut that comes along with completing the square. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. So it's going to be x minus 1 inside the parentheses plus 2. And again, the last step, make sure you bring that this value over to the other side. So add 3 to both sides. I get y is equal to negative 3 times x minus 1 squared plus 5. So the trickiest part to this is remembering after you do the GCF, whatever is on the outside, you got to multiply that by the C value when you add it to the other side. Let's just do one more equation. We have an equation that is not in the standard form. We just have to do some things to move things around a little bit more. So let me write the vertex form one more time. So it's y is equal to 1 over 4p times x minus h squared plus k. All right, so we need to look like this. So we want the y in numbers on the one side, everything else. So what I'm going to do is move, I'm going to keep the y on the left side. I'm going to move the x's and everything else over to the right side. So I'm going to add x squared. I'm going to add 8x. And I guess just to make it match up with what we just did, I'll go ahead and add the 25. It's not necessary. You can do it at the very end too, after you complete the square, but I will add all those values to that side. So here, x squares cancel out. This cancels out. I just have a y, and then this cancels out. Is going to be equal to x squared plus 8x. I'm going to give a little bit of space in there, 25. Nothing from the x, so I don't have to factor out. I don't have to do GCF. I just need to complete the square with the 8 there. So work out the c value over here. C is going to be 8 divided by 2 squared. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Squared is 16. I'm going to add 16 here. Whatever you add on one side, you have to add the other. There's nothing to multiply by in the front, so I can just add 16 to this side. So here I get y plus 16 is equal to, I'm going to factor this, so just using that shortcut, get x plus 25 out here. You just take half that middle term, so 8 divided by 2 is 4, so it's going to be x plus 4 squared. And then the last step, subtract the 16 from both sides, the y by itself, plus 16 minus 16 cancels out. You get y is equal to x plus 4 squared. 25 minus 16 is 9. All right, and that will do it for this lesson. Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.